The old lecture hall smelled faintly of ozone and sterilized resin. Rows of amphitheater seats rose steeply around the central teaching dais, where a shimmering holodisplay projected shifting planetary orbits above the head of Professor Chiralk. He stood tall on three jointed legs, arms folded behind his back, his iridescent exoskin catching flickers of star-mapped light. Around him, dozens of alien students sat upright, furred, scaled, gelatinous, feathered, representing the brightest minds from 35 star systems, all listening with attentive reverence. All sapient life evolves, Chiralk declared, but only those born under constant, ruthless pressure are forged into true Deathworlders. He gestured toward the holomap, now rotating slowly to reveal his own homeworld. Cathara, acidic oceans, megastorms lasting weeks, predatory flora that grew faster than their prey could walk. The room collectively exhaled, respectful, impressed. Cathara's biosphere hosts over 6,000 identified lethal species. 93% of our megafauna is carnivorous. Average annual mortality from environmental causes, 14%. And still we endure. He paced, mandibles twitch no mention of those correction. He blinked slowly, as if basking in the gravitas of his own words. We are the only known Deathworld civilization to reach spacefaring maturity. The only one. No one challenged him. Not the Nothari twins with their oxygenated carapaces, not the drifting Yarilo mine florets seated in nutrient vapor columns. Not even the Linari historian, whose species once catalogued a solar flare as art. Except, of course, for the human sitting quietly near the back. Alex raised his hand. Chiralk paused, mid-pose. Yes? Exchange student Alexander, do you have a question? Just a comment, really, Alex said. Ever heard of Earth? A few students turned. A pair of Drelzy clicked their tongues. No, keep it alien, but not absurd, hummed nervously. Someone emitted a low-frequency buzz. Chiralk didn't laugh. He looked at Alex the way one might look at a wall that had started talking. Earth, Chiralk said flatly, is a temperate, carbon-rich biosphere with stabilized climate bands and relatively low predation ratios. Your file classifies it as Tier 4, risk level negligible. Hardly a death world. That file, Alex said, didn't include the box jellyfish, or cassowaries, or the fungal species that turns ants into zombies. One of the Yarilo wilted slightly in its nutrient mist. Alex continued. Or venomous platypuses, crocodiles that can smell blood underwater, microbes that can kill you slowly, or fast, depending on how lucky you are. And that's just the fauna. The weather alone can rip your house off the ground or drop ice from the sky the size of fists. I've seen your meteorological logs, Chiralk said, but there was a subtle stiffness in his stance now. They're not uncommon in transitional zones across neutral worlds. Alex leaned forward. We once recorded a temperature swing from 80 degrees Fahrenheit to below freezing in a single afternoon, in spring, in Kansas. A feathered student raised a wing hesitantly. Where is Kansas? Somewhere between Tornado Alley and the Dust Bowl. More laughter, though it was thinner this time. A few students stared at Alex like he'd just confessed to swimming in acid for fun. Alex shrugged. Don't get me wrong, we've adapted, but if you're going to talk about Deathworlders, maybe don't end the list at yourselves. Chiralk narrowed his pupils. You're suggesting Earth meets Deathworld criteria. I'm saying you haven't seen the half of it. There was a beat of silence before Chiralk stepped back toward the dais and tapped into the panel interface with two clawed digits. The holomap shifted again, now displaying a hemispherical chamber schematic labeled Biome Adaptation Simulator. This device, Chiralk said slowly, is used to model alien ecosystems for survival training. It has been calibrated against every known Deathworld scenario. He rotated toward Alex. Are you volunteering a demonstration? There was the sound of air being inhaled through gills. No one moved. Alex, to his credit, hesitated. Just a flicker. Then he nodded. Sure, why not? 10 minutes later, Alex stood in front of the BAS chamber, stripped down to base gear. A gray climate-adaptive suit with integrated vitals monitor and a gel-pack collar for temperature regulation. He didn't look confident, he looked like someone remembering every documentary on animal attacks he'd ever seen. The chamber tech, a slim violet-skinned Corelli named Vesk, pulled up Earth's data package. We've never used planetary data directly from local files before, she warned. The baseline unpredictability will be significant. Alex gave a half nod. Just try not to kill me. Statistically unlikely, she said, but not impossible. Inside the simulator, Earth spun slowly above the holoplate. Vesk tapped in the coordinates for randomized environmental triggers, cross-referenced with climate zones from Siberia, the Amazon basin, Australian coasts, and Midwest America. The screen blinked twice. "Ready?" she asked. Alex's throat bobbed. "Let's get this over with." The simulator door sealed with a hiss. The first 30 seconds were manageable. Dense humidity, the sound of insects, tropical heat rising past 100 degrees. Alex squinted through thick air and pushed forward into simulated jungle. Giant leaves dripped condensation, something chirped, then hissed. Then it changed. In an instant, the air dropped 20 degrees. A gust of wind nearly knocked him sideways. Snow flurried out of nowhere. Alex gasped, arms over his face. Then a thunderclap. Simulated lightning struck a nearby tree. The jungle was gone. Now it was high plains, blistering sunlight, dust in his eyes. Then rain sheets of it. Then something else. A howl. Predator simulation. Alex turned just in time to see a blur leap from the side. Pain, real pain, radiated across his ribs. He hit the ground, rolled. Then darkness. Cold, water lapping at his legs. Hypothermia warning blinked in red across the vitals monitor. Oxygen levels dropped as fog rolled in. That's when the system flagged him as in distress. Vesk slammed the override. The chamber hissed open. Alex crumpled forward, barely conscious, soaked, shivering violently. His breathing was erratic. A large bruise bloomed over his left side, and his lips were tinged blue. One pupil reacted slower than the other. Medical officers swarmed him, confused, frantic. What's wrong with his chest symmetry? Why is his core temperature falling this fast? Why are his blood levels spiking despite external stabilization? Chiralk hovered near the perimeter, silent now, his gaze fixed on Alex's collapsed form. A human medical module was called in. They scanned twice, then confirmed. 2 cracked ribs, deep muscle bruising, mild internal bleeding, severe dehydration, borderline hypothermia. He needs thermoregulation now and a respiratory patch, the lead medic snapped. He's conscious, but he won't stay that way unless we stabilize those lungs. Alex moaned. Don't put me back in that thing, I get it, I win. Then he passed out. 2 hours later, Alex was on oxygen support in the recovery ward. He drifted in and out of sleep, his chest bandaged, his temperature slowly climbing back to safe levels. Fever hadn't set in yet, but the medics were watching for signs. And in Lecture Hall 4, the Biome Studies class sat in stunned silence. Chiralk did not resume his lesson. Not that day. The room was dim, filtered through a soft amber glow meant to mimic early terrestrial dawn. The medical bay's climate was optimized for pan-species recovery, but someone had discreetly adjusted Alex's unit warmer, drier, and stocked with a hydration drip now half depleted. His vitals pulsed slowly on the overhead display, stable but far from optimal. 3 days had passed since the simulator incident. The cracked ribs were taped and padded, though any attempt to shift brought sharp, breathless pain. The bruising down his left side had deepened to a nasty wine purple, pooling at his hip. More concerning were the breath sounds wet, irregular, and the oxygen line that still fed his nose despite his protests. Alex turned his head slightly and winced. Even that hurt. Why does my lung feel like someone poured soup in it? He rasped. Dr. Yelsha, the attending alien physician, blinked her 5 eyes in rapid succession, surprise, concern, irritation, all at once. Because you developed a mild pulmonary infection, likely from aspirating simulated bog water. We're managing it with narrow-spectrum antimicrobials compatible with human cell membranes. Try not to complain while breathing. It taxes your diaphragm. I wasn't complaining, Alex said. I was narrating. She exhaled through her spiracles. Do you humans always joke when injured? Only when we're not dying. It confuses the bacteria. Yelsha paused, pen poised above the chart. That wasn't a serious statement, was it? Alex gave her a thin, fever-glazed smile. No, Doc. Just delirious. Word had spread. Not through official channels, but through the interstellar version of gossip pulses between learning pods, shared flashes from neural pads, speculative murmurs across nutrient bar tables. The Terran had nearly died. And more bizarrely, he volunteered for it. Several students from Tralk's class visited on the fourth day. First, one of the feathered Zelari twins, bringing a thermally inert canister of fruit paste impossible to open with one hand, which Alex discovered the hard way. Then came the gelatinous Urilo, who hovered awkwardly for 10 minutes without speaking, before producing a neatly labeled list of Earth's top 5 most lethal birds, which it had compiled from Xenoweb sources. The number one entry, much to the Urilo's fascination, was indeed the cassowary. "That's real?" asked the Urlo, rippling slightly in its hover casing. Alex wheezed a cough. "Very real. They've sent people to the hospital for looking at them funny." "Do they possess neurotoxins?" "Nope, just attitude." The Urlo wobbled thoughtfully. We were not taught this in pre-departure orientation. Neither were any of them, apparently. Because on the 6th day, after Alex's fever finally broke and he could sit up for more than 10 minutes at a time, he awoke to find Professor Tralk himself waiting silently beside his bed. Alex blinked. "If this is a dream, I'm gonna punch it." Tralk inclined his head. "You are awake, and under analgesic sedation, I presume." "Little bit. Why?" "I require clarification." Alex sighed. "Can I clarify after I sit up without crying?" Tralk stepped forward and produced a small projection disc. It hovered, flickered, then displayed a slow rotation of Earth. "I accessed historical data from your global archives. Lightning that incinerates homes, storms with sustained winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, apex predators with night vision and olfactory tracking, and pollen seasons. Don't forget brain-eating amoebas," Alex muttered. "They really round out the package." Tralk didn't laugh. "Your species builds homes in floodplains, in volcanic zones, on fault lines. You repeatedly rebuild them. We have short memories and good insurance. You celebrate dangerous weather with festivals. Not always on purpose." Tralk stared at him. "Your historical records include conflicts over salt and whale oil. Have you tried salt on popcorn?" Another long pause. Finally, Tralk turned the projection off. "You said Earth was not considered a death world, that it was just home." "Still is," Alex said, coughing lightly. "We're not trying to impress the galaxy. Most of us are just trying to make rent. That is deeply irrational." Alex gave a lopsided smile. "Yeah, well. So is riding a two-wheeled frame down a mountain with no brakes, but that hasn't stopped anyone I know." Tralk was silent. Then, carefully, "I believe Deathworlders must be forged by terror, hardened by constant threat into something unrecognizable, something unrelatable." "And what did you see?" Tralk looked at the cracked ribs beneath bandages, the IV still dripping into Alex's arm, the swelling just starting to recede. A man, vulnerable, but alive. 2 more days passed. Alex was cleared to leave the ward, though walking still required assistance, and deep breaths triggered stabbing pain. He moved like an old man in a borrowed body, slightly hunched, cautious, and very aware of gravity. He used the downtime to review lecture content from his tablet, most of which felt insulting after his near death in the simulator. His favorite slide remained unchanged. Cathara, classification, hostile death world. Known inhabitants, Cathari. But then, on the 9th day, something changed. Alex was wheeled into Lecture Hall 4, not because he was expected to participate, but because Yelsha insisted some social reacclimation would benefit his recovery. Students murmured as he entered. Some offered awkward nods. One tried to gift him a bag of sterilized rocks. Then Tralk appeared, stepping onto the dais without preamble. He said nothing at first. Just tapped the control panel. The old slide vanished. A new one appeared. Earth, classification, extreme death world. Known inhabitants, Homo sapiens, humans. The room held its breath. Tralk turned to face the students. "Correction. We are not the only death world civilization, we are one of 2. And our classification model must be revised." He paused, then nodded toward Alex. "There is no superiority in surviving such worlds, only will, and endurance, and, often, suffering. I misjudged what constitutes adaptation. I invite you not to repeat my error." Alex swallowed around the tightness in his throat. This time, no one laughed. One student raised a hand. "Is it true your species domesticated apex predators?" Alex blinked. "You mean dogs?" "Yeah, and cats, and Kinda bears, if you count Russians. Another hand. How did you achieve global communication under such ecological stress? Alex gave a tired smile. We yelled across the planet until we figured it out. A Yarilo waved its tentacle. Would you recommend Earth for research internships? Only if you pack sunscreen, bear spray, and emotional support. Someone else asked about volcanoes. Another, about the cold regions and their psychological effects. One earnest Drelzy just wanted to know if it was true humans put pineapple on food items categorized as savory. Alex answered them all, slowly but honestly. Not to prove a point. Just because they were asking now. The Academy's southern atrium was typically quiet during the post-meal shift. A few students loitered at the hydration walls or clustered by the panoramic viewport that framed the orbiting gas giant pale ochre rings, curling against a black velvet void. Alex sat hunched on a bench near the artificial bonsai grove, wrapped in a thin recovery robe, his knees drawn close against the chill. His breath no longer rasped, but the cough still lingered, like an unwanted guest. A physio patch hugged his ribs under the robe. The low-grade lung infection had finally yielded to treatment, but it had left behind a sore, persistent fatigue. He could walk short distances now without help, but the dizziness often returned by the fourth corridor. Everything about his recovery was excruciatingly slow. And yet, he was becoming a minor celebrity. He was approached twice that morning, once by a curious Linari who wanted to discuss the concept of campfires, and once by an Andoran sociologist asking how Earth's children were allowed to fall off playground equipment. Unsupervised. Both left visibly disturbed. One even bowed. He didn't know what to do with that. A familiar figure strode toward him, Keth, a wiry, bipedal student with a plum-colored crest and a translator device that clipped awkwardly over his neck scales. He held a long cylindrical tube sealed, labeled, and very cold to the touch. I brought you Earth analog flora nutrients, Keth said, offering the container with something like pride. They mimic the fibrous content of your Solanaceae family. Some of them are red. Alex accepted the tube. Thanks, that's oddly thoughtful. I researched your planet's nutritional needs. You require color-varied food to maintain psychological stability. Alex snorted. You mean vegetables? Yeah, more or less. Keth sat beside him, tail curled politely under the bench. Professor Chralk has updated all 3 of his courses. The term Death World now includes psychological thresholds for adaptability under cumulative trauma. He credits you during every lecture. Chralk was 5 her Dave. Alex gave a dry chuckle. I didn't plan to become a cautionary tale. No, you became a case study. There was no sarcasm in it, just quiet admiration. Keth hesitated, then asked, Was it true what you said, that Earth wasn't built to impress anyone? Alex leaned back, watching a small maintenance drone hum across the ceiling panels. Yeah, nobody grows up thinking, wow, I sure live in a terrifying ecosystem. We just call it weather, and bugs. And the reason your mom makes you wear long socks in summer. Keth tilted his head. That is concerning. Welcome to Earth. The following week marked Alex's first full return to class. He sat close to the back, not because he was avoiding attention, but because standing up too fast still made stars crawl across his vision. His joints ached with a dull, familiar stubbornness, the kind you either learned to live with or spent years resenting. Chralk took the dais without fanfare. Gone was the swagger of the early lectures. In its place was something sharper, quieter. Not humility, exactly, but precision. Today, Chralk began, we explore ecological survivorship curves. The screen displayed 3 arcing graphs. The middle one, a sharp drop-off, followed by a long plateau, was labeled Type 2, Constant Threat Model. This is the standard curve for species on hostile but navigable worlds, Cathara, Urali Prime, now Earth. He tapped again. The curve blinked red. The human pattern is anomalous. Statistically, your species should not have reached interstellar capacity. Alex lifted a brow. Gee, thanks. Chralk ignored the sarcasm. Your bodies are inefficient in vacuum. Your caloric needs are disproportionate. Your soft tissue vulnerabilities are plentiful, Alex offered. Extensive, Chralk finished. And yet, your species continues to adapt, not by shielding itself from risk, but by developing collective workarounds. Physical, psychological, and cultural. You do not resist danger. You accommodate it. A hush settled over the hall. Alex slowly sat forward. You're saying our survival isn't about strength, it's about flexibility. Tralk nodded once. Adaptation through stress is a known path. But your kind embraces it through ritual, through humor, through storytelling. This is not common. Alex didn't reply. Not right away. His hand instinctively rubbed his side, where the soreness still pulsed under the ribs. The room was quiet, except for the soft whir of the air circulators. Then, one of the Urilo raised a limb. If Earth is so dangerous, why not leave it? Alex looked up. Some have, but you can't take the sky with you. Or the smell of rain on hot asphalt. Or the sound of cicadas in July. It's dangerous, yeah, but it's also ours. Tralk stepped back from the display. Danger does not negate belonging, it defines it. A few days later, Alex was invited to a faculty session informal, they said. Just a few instructors reviewing policy changes based on recent events. When he arrived, cane in hand and still slightly breathless from the stairs, he found a half-dozen senior staff already present. There was Vesk, the simulator tech, now leading a research grant proposal to recalibrate the biome adaptation simulator for variable stressor modeling. Yelsha sat nearby, contributing notes from the post-incident medical logs. Even Tralk was present, albeit standing stiffly near the data projector, hands clasped. We'd like your permission, Vesk began, to include your BAS session data in a broader study. Anonymized, of course. Alex blinked. You want to use my brush with death as academic fodder? Only the physiological segments, Yelsha said. Your recovery cycle is frustratingly normal, which is exactly the point. Tralk added, we have already had inquiries from 3 other institutions. Alex scratched his head. You're telling me Earth's weather is about to become homework? No, Vesk said. Earth is becoming a model, for survivability, not supremacy. That gave Alex pause. Fine, he said finally, but I want something in return. Yelsha narrowed her eyes. Monetary compensation is regulated. Not credits, Alex interrupted. Start teaching about us right. No dramatics, no bravado, just truth. The good, the awful, the weird, the stuff that actually matters. He looked directly at Tralk. Tell them we don't wrestle apex predators because we're fearless. We do it because sometimes that's just what it takes to get to the mailbox. Tralk dipped his head. Agreed. Alex nodded. Then added, also, someone owes me a new pair of boots. The simulator soaked the last ones. That night, alone in his room, Alex stared at the stars outside his viewport. The gas giant's reflection shimmered faintly against the Academy's hull. He thought of the simulator, of the freezing water, of the pain in his chest when he fell. He thought of Earth not as a point of pride, or proof, or justification, but as a memory, a place filled with absurdity and danger and kindness and chaos. A place that had taught him how to stand back up when standing hurt like hell. He smiled faintly, leaned back, and closed his eyes. He had survived worse. By the time the seasonal winds returned to the orbital campus, dry cross-currents from the station's exterior climate modulators sweeping down the southern concourse, Alex was walking unaided. Slowly, with the occasional grimace, but upright and unassisted. His ribs still ached when he sneezed, and there were mornings when the joint in his right knee stiffened so badly he had to massage it awake, but the bruises had faded. The fever was long gone. The lung infection cleared. He still kept a backup inhaler, just in case. The medical wing had officially discharged him that week, though Dr. Yelsha muttered something about reckless biologics and human self-sabotaging through stubbornness in her notes. He didn't take it personally. After all, she was probably right. What had begun as a humiliating detour, one dumb dare in a lecture hall, had spiraled into something far stranger, a shift. Not just in perception, but in curriculum, in policy, in the way other species regarded him when he walked through the atrium or stood in the hydroponic queue. He used to draw snickers. Now he got nods. Sometimes stares. Once, he even got a cautious fist bump from a Grelkin engineer who had no fists. And still, it didn't feel like victory. One morning, Tralk approached him in the central observatory. The older alien looked, as always, like he had stepped straight out of a preservation tank. Posture rigid, gaze sharp, voice a clipped monotone of gravitas. But today, his tone was different. Quieter, less didactic. Alexander, he said, your term concludes soon. Alex nodded, watching the soft orbit of a nearby ice moon. 3 weeks. Then it's transport home, assuming I pass Xenopsych final. Tralk paused, as if weighing the wind before speaking. I'm submitting your experience for archival recognition, as a precedent for interspecies resilience modeling. Alex smirked. So, I'm going to be a footnote in someone's survival textbook? Not a footnote. A case header. That earned a laugh. It hurt, slightly, but it was real. I was wrong, Tralk added. About your species. About you. Alex raised an eyebrow. You sure it wasn't just that I refused to die convincingly? Tralk's mandib eye spots narrowed. It was that you admitted it hurt. That landed heavier than Alex expected. Because it had hurt, still did, in moments he didn't let anyone see. The nights of aching ribs and phantom fever, and the quiet terror of waking up short of breath. But he hadn't minimized it, hadn't joked his way through it all. Maybe that's what stuck with them. Good, Alex said at last, because there are a lot more of us back home, and if someone else ever gets into that simulator, I want them to be warned. During the final week of term, the Academy hosted its traditional cross-cultural colloquium. It was part symposium, part chaotic science fair, complete with regional food simulations, lectures by visiting experts, and more than one ambassador awkwardly shaking hands with creatures who had no concept of grip pressure. Alex had been asked to present. Specifically, a panel titled Human Resilience in Death World Conditions, a first-person account. The room was packed. He stood at the podium, still in his academy robe creased at the elbows, collar a little loose, and took a long moment to breathe. The audience included faculty, students, even off-world researchers beaming in through projection relays. At least 3 camera drones hovered mid-air, silent and blinking. He tapped the display panel, and the screen behind him lit up. A single word. Earth. No fanfare. No dramatic visuals. Just Earth. He looked out across the room. I know what you're expecting, he began. Stories about crocodiles and lightning and rabid wildlife. And yeah, those exist. But if you only measure a planet by how likely it is to kill you, you miss what it teaches you along the way. He clicked the panel again. This time, footage. A wildfire sweeping through a forest, then volunteers forming a human chain to rescue trapped animals. Hurricanes battering coastlines, followed by neighbors rebuilding homes together. Footage of people skiing down volcano slopes. A kid in a parka petting a wolf dog through a wire fence. An elderly woman smacking a bear with a frying pan. You see danger, we see normal, Alex said. Because survival isn't just about escaping what's trying to kill you. It's about adapting so well, you learn how to thrive anyway. Sometimes through technology, sometimes through sheer stubbornness, sometimes because it's the only option left. Another tap, a slow image collage, homemade snow shelters, desert agriculture, space launch towers wrapped in flame-proof sheets. Then, a final slide. An old couple on a porch during a windstorm, drinking tea calmly as trees bent sideways behind them. We don't overcome Earth, Alex said softly. We live with it, laugh through it, sometimes curse it, but always, we stay. Because home isn't just where you feel safe, it's where you belong, even when it's trying to kill you with pollen. That earned actual laughter, not nervous this time. And if you want to understand humans really understand us, don't start with our weapons or our technologies or even our bodies. Start with our tenacity, our weirdness, our ability to take the most dangerous planet we've ever known and build playgrounds on it. Silence, then applause. Long, genuine. Tralk stood in the back, unmoving, but Alex saw his chin dip once. Approval. That meant more than he could say. 2 days before departure, Alex received an envelope, physical, not digital, hand-delivered. Inside, a revised syllabus from Tralk's Death World's 201 course. Page 3, Section 4. Case Study. Earth, Sol 3. Category: Extreme Death World. Notes: Inhabitants display unique multi-layered adaptability. Emotional resilience may exceed physiological expectations. Species displays habitual normalization of environmental trauma. Suggested reading: Cultural Folklore, Select Entries, Civil Infrastructure Failures, Florida Man, Archives. At the bottom, One final note handwritten in carefully curved script. Survivors are not defined by their lack of wounds, but by the fact they continue forward with them. Alex boarded the outbound transport with 2 bruised ribs, 1 slightly dodgy lung, and enough memories to keep a therapist employed for a decade. But also with something else. The knowledge that his planet was finally seen for what it was. Not just hostile, not just strange, but worthy. And maybe, just maybe, a little magnificent. As the transport engines hummed and the stars shifted outside the viewport, Alex leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes, and whispered, "We're not the only Deathworlders anymore." And somewhere far behind him, the Academy's database updated again. Earth, confirmed. Inhabitants, still alive.